Because of Canada's rapidly rising home prices, the Government of Canada has decided to swoop in and help out Canadian first-time home buyers. Eligible Canadians can receive up to 10% of your home's value to put towards your down payment. Sounds too good to be true? Unfortunately, it is. And here are the caveats. FTHBI stands for First Time Homebuyers Incentive, which is an incentive where the government will give you 10% of your home's value if you're buying a new construction, 5% of your home's value if you're buying a resale property, and 5% of your home's value if you're buying a new or resale mobile home. Who's eligible, you ask? You of course have to be a first-time homebuyer. You also have to be a Canadian permanent resident or citizen. Or you could be a Canadian non-permanent resident who's authorized to work in Canada. So somebody on their work permit. There are some other restrictions that you need to be aware of as well. You cannot borrow more than 4.5 times your annual income if you plan on buying anywhere in the Greater Toronto Area, Vancouver, or Victoria, and cannot borrow more than 4 times your annual income for anywhere else in Canada. You do need to have the minimum down payment as required by CMHC. And you can buy 1 to 4 unit properties, so not only your condos, you can buy a townhouse, a semi-detached, even a duplex, a triplex, or a fourplex. Cool, this is amazing! But I don't like this program because of some of the fine prints. Number 1, it's not free money. You do have to pay it back, obviously. Number 2, you cannot pay it back in installments. The amount must be paid in full when you sell the house or 25 years after the purchase, whichever comes first. Number 3, it's a second mortgage on your house. Now the government is calling it a second mortgage, but to me, it's not quite that, it's something else. If it were a mortgage, they would allow for you to make a monthly or a bi-weekly payment to reduce your debt on a fixed or a variable interest. But it's a lot more, like the government owns that 5 or 10% of your house. And the reason I say that is how the repayment plan is set up. When you sell your house, you don't just have to pay back the base amount that you gained from the government. You have to pay the percentage of your home's evaluation at that point. So let's say you're buying a $500,000 new construction home, in which case the government's giving you $50,000, that's 10%, to deposit as your down payment. This will definitely bring down the monthly payment you need to make. But let's say you sell this house 3 or 5 years down the line for $750,000, which is not unusual in the Greater Toronto Area at least. You now have to pay the government 10% of that value. So the $50,000 loan or incentive that the government gave you now returns to the government $75,000. So it's a lot more like the government owning a portion of your property than really giving you an incentive or that money to put towards your down payment. Also, you don't just have to repay the incentive when you try to sell the house. According to CMHC's website, there are other events that could trigger this repayment as well, which could put you in a very tricky situation. Some of them are: A, you go through a breakup and want to buy out the co-borrower. So if you get a divorce or if you bought this property with somebody and then decide to buy out their portion. If this requires additional insured funds, so you probably need to get another mortgage in that scenario, you must pay back that incentive in full. B, porting your mortgage will trigger repayment on the incentive. And people refinance and port their mortgages all the time. C, a partial release of security is considered a sale and will trigger the incentive repayment. And D, which is my least favorite one, a change in the property's intended use. So if you buy another property and decide to rent this one out, you now need to pay the government back that 5 or 10% of your property's appraised price at that point. That's just crazy. So imagine being out there in the market to buy another house thinking you can rent this one out. But suddenly you don't just have to pay the down payment and the closing costs for this new property, you also now need to figure out how to sponsor this 5 or 10% for your previous property to be able to repay the government based on the evaluation at that point. That's going to be a lot of money and a big hit. Despite all of this, I may have done some math and considered this incentive if it meant avoiding the mortgage insurance. If you're new to the home buying process in Canada, if you're buying a house with less than 20% down, you do have to get a mortgage insurance on top of it, which is insured by Genworth or CMHC, and it insures your bank in case you default. But according to the rules for this incentive, you are still required to have a high-risk loan. So your down payment and the government's contribution cannot be equal to or more than 20%. And you're still required to get that insurance on top of your mortgage. So really, it gives me no benefit or incentive, pun intended, to use this incentive. There are very few scenarios where this incentive could be useful, and I generally wouldn't recommend it to anybody. You're much better off saving more aggressively for your down payment, borrowing money from friends and family, getting a second job, or freelancing. I hope this was helpful. As usual, if you have any questions at all, leave them in the comment section below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. Until next time, take care.